Okay, sure. My name is Chris Voss. And first, I want to thank the committee for sort of moving us up to sort of go first today. This proposal actually started about a year ago when the 5 emergency management county directors sat down and we started to have a conversation about staffing and sort of the balance of staffing, and specifically some of the things that we thought that were not being done from an operational standpoint. The RDPO was doing a great job of starting to produce some products, but we thought that next it was up for the counties to sort of work with their cities and other counterparts to sort of make sure that some of those plans were trained, exercised, even how we were doing sort of after-action reports. If you read this proposal, there's also some gaps that we thought that needed to be done at the county level that were not being supported. Simply because we were strapped. So one of those things you'll see even support for identifying locations to make sure that we continue to get funding and sort of working with the Fusion Center and identifying events that would sort of help improve our score. In reality, we're probably the groups that are sort of on point for most of those activities, but over the course of years, I think that we've just sort of got more and more strapped. Now, when we were having this conversation as the emergency management directors, if you read through this proposal, we certainly put together concepts, but I don't think that any of us, when we started this, thought that that's where it would sort of end. What we were hoping for is that we want to bring this conversation to sort of the steering committee, because for us, it's about balance. It's what is the right staffing balance, and here we have these UASI dollars, and at one point in time, UASI dollars, they did support people in the communities, and we saw some benefits from that. There were some lessons learned, I think, through that process as well. And so this is us going back and having that conversation. Hey, what are we doing? What do we need to continue to operationalize to make sure that we are successful? For me, you'll see in this proposal sort of a lot about training and exercises, because I think that that's an area where we could and should be doing more. I find it interesting that I sit around the table with a lot of the folks here in meetings, but not nearly as many exercises. In fact, we don't really have sort of regular cycles, I think, where we sort of walk through that process. I'd like there to be more, and I know that a lot of my counterparts believe there should be. But this is really about, it's a conversation about staffing. It's a conversation about balance and where we should be for the future. We only have a few minutes. Nancy, anything you want to add?
No, there's not a lot to add to that. I think Chris said it very well. A lot of it in the conversations we've had with our counterparts is really about balance. We're pushed on both ends all the time, which is coming up, from the county and things that we need to do there. The feds are adding more, the state adds more. There's always things going on. And then the RDPO, we need to figure out how to, for the region, be able to do this a little bit better. And this was part of that staffing conversation that we had.
Yeah, I'll highlight one project to give you, for instance. I think the regions provided us the UASI about $250,000 to support mass care in the county. That's sort of leading us up. In the state, we've got another $100,000. That doesn't include, in the last 5 years, the county spent over $1 million in staffing to support that activity. We get nothing for that. And so I often think that sometimes the difference between a very successful project and some of the products that we put on shelves is how we train, how we exercise, and our confidence in operationalizing. And the only way that sometimes, or one of the best ways to do that is sort of staffing. So that is the conversation we want to have. I don't think this sort of ends here, but I want to thank you for your time, and we'll have to take some questions.
Any questions from folks about this proposal? It's a pretty significant impact to the way we do things, so I hope there are some questions.
I just know how we've done it with the hospitals, and it took a long time. But what's your concept of? I mean, I get it, it's balance and all of that, but I'm not sure how it's going to work between the counties. And is it going to be like a?
Sure.
I just need to know what your long-term planning goal is.
So this is not meant to be sort of a one-year effort. So
right.
To first answer your question, as we go to this process, when we first talked, so we'd love to sort of do this for 2 consecutive years, although this is 1 year of funding. We'd love to do this for 2 consecutive years, and identify the exercises based on some of the risks we have, and so some of those are mass terrorists. There's a big focus on Cascadia right now and sort of planning for that event. And even if we did bring in contractors, it's not like that would sort of end there. You'll see there's, in the specifics proposal, there's a lot of training in the area of damage assessment as well. We thought that that was an area that collectively we weren't working as a region together to sort of provide some of that solution. But I'd love to think that, first we're sitting down a little bit more with the counterparts and the steering committee to sort of outline the specifics on some of the staffing. And there are some shortfalls, to be honest. Even some of the counties identified it's difficult for them to bring in people, so it takes a little time to sort of ramp up and see some of the benefits from bringing some personnel in as well. This first year, you see deliverables, like I said, in the area of sort of identifying locations. You're seeing exercises. You're seeing training for damage assessment. I think there were some benefits to some of the government operations as well. We don't think that these are county employees, it's not my role from a county standpoint to improve county programs. So you see everything in these programs is about improving the larger county circle, which includes our schools, it includes our health sector, it includes our other governmental organizations from Metro to Port of Portland to TriMet, includes all of those groups. That is my end goal as a county director. I don't get the luxury of just being able to care for and or work with just sort of improve county government operations. And so when you look at this proposal, that's why I think a lot of it was focused on exercises where we were all getting together and sitting across the table and sort of working out issues from multiple disciplines and not just sometimes focusing on a single discipline, because I think we already do that to some degree.
So what happens, just another part of it, you said you see this as a 2-year plan with just 1 year of funding that you're asking for. What happens if you don't get funding in the second year? And what's the sustainability for that? Did you consider kind of, not staging it, but putting in for a larger amount with, being able for us to pick what we can do and what we can't do this year?
So it is not stepped that way. So
Okay.
if the dollars came out less, I think that the emergency management directors will sit down and be like, where do we think our highest priorities are based on the funding that exists? So like I said, that certainly happens. I think we're all in the position sometimes when we think about sort of this multi-year and when you're talking about staffing, like, hey, how do you prepare for sort of the next year? No, we're not asking for 2 years of funding because we want to start. And be honest, if we don't get funding in a second year, I think those are some hard questions that the counties have to answer. But I can tell you this: I also know as a county that often if I have a term-funded position in the county and then I lose funding for that position, I'm often in a better position to sort of make the argument for continued dollars locally than I am. That's no guarantee either, but I think that we sort of are in a better position to make that case. And the other thing that I think that we've seen from a benefit, I think in the last go-around, was that there are some people that brought in just from a force multiplier standpoint that have become part of the programs. It was more people, I think Nora, you're one of those folks, right? Didn't we bring you in through sort of this program? So I think that it allowed more people to be part of the process and sort of expanding our numbers, I think became a force multiplier for us as well. So I continue to think that, yes, things will change if we don't get the dollars. I would even, this may not be friendly to say, but I think the dollars may increase in the second year because we do know that some of the jurisdictions said they need a little bit more time for staffing because it would be harder for them to sort of ramp up fully in a year. So it's possible that if we start to see successes that these dollars increase. But I think that I'm glad that we have a process annually where we're continuing to review it to see, hey, listen, if it's not beneficial or if there's something that's more important that needs to happen, well, then great, then we change our priorities. We just didn't want this year to go by knowing where we were and knowing what our priorities were and thinking where some of the shortfalls were and not put this on the table. We think some of the projects that we've seen in the pipeline are excellent, but we think that this is also a contender to improve what we've already done in the region and where we need to go next.
Okay, Chris, I'm gonna have to cut you off there. Thank you for the presentation, and I think this will obviously have to keep being discussed at the steering committee level, so.
If you do have additional questions, feel free to email me
Yeah.
too.